2, 3. Ah, sì, sì. Hey, I'm saying this out. Yeah.
Okay, Brahma. Good evening, everyone. I think we can start now. It's full house. I'm sorry for some of you that came a little bit late and couldn't find a place. Next time, we'll make sure we have more chairs in here. But I'm sure Manuel will be so interesting that you won't even feel the time going and being on it. So tonight we have another, let's say, round of and tonight we have Manuel Aires Matias from Portugal, from Lisbon, actually. He will talk with us and also show us some of his works and passions. And this will be our third encounter at Tula to talk about different things that influence architecture and to talk also about the architect himself. We will have more frequent encounters at Tula this year. Next week, we have another Portuguese architect coming. And the week after that, we will have a Korean architect, but I'm not telling names now. We will tell you about that a little, let's say, later. So we want to make sure that this will become an address of architecture and inspirations for most of you and most of us. I will be very brief in this introduction, and I will invite now immediately my colleague, young colleague Adonel, who will give you a brief introduction of Manuel, and then we will invite Manuel on stage to give a very brief presentation. And then we will talk with him, like interview him a little bit and open the floor for you to also interview him. So thank you and enjoy tonight.
Uh,
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Here we are gathered today to celebrate, and to have here present with us one of great architect of from Portugal, Arias Mateus. It's a pleasure to introduce him today. He is one of the most influential voices in contemporary Portuguese architecture. Together with his brother Francisco, he founded Arias Mateus in Lisbon, a practice that is internationally recognized for its rigorous exploration of space and material essence. Arias Mateus' work is described not through what it adds, but through what it removes. His work emerges from subtractions, creating spaces where light, proportions, and time becomes a true protagonist. Worlds are not merely boundaries, they're thickened spaces. Voids are not absences, but carefully constructed presence. His approach places his work in dialogue with a broader architectural lineage that includes from Fernando Távora, Álvaro Siza, Gonçalo Byrne, Soto de Moura, Cahilo da Graça, and it continues, all of whom share a concern on permanence, restraint, and emotional weight of space. These lectures follow an exhibition of Mateus in Fundação Serralves in Porto, with the same name, Beleza apesar de tudo, beauty despite everything. Today, we are invited not just to see projects, but to enter a way of reasoning about architecture. One that is slow, that is radical, and quietly profound. I welcome here, Maestro.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for coming. And what I thought about doing one thing that is double. I don't know how it goes, but I'm going to be talking about an exhibition, even if it's not possible to show the exhibition. The name of the exhibition is Beauty Despises All, and it's about the condition of how to exhibit architecture in an art museum. And we are very interested in this idea that when we are talking about architecture, when we are representing architecture or showing architecture in a museum, we are talking about something that it's not there. But my feeling, it's architecture, it's never there. Architecture is always a possibility. So this idea that's ambiguity, that we can be translating something in some, and that it's not exactly what is the building, because the building, it's not exactly what it is without life. It's interesting to create this possibility in exhibiting architecture. So I'm going to just show you some image of the exhibition. Even if it's the exhibition, it's not possible to translate in these elements. But could we go? So one of the rooms that we have in here, it's that this room where we compare with all at the same scale, representing the same way, 72 different projects. And our idea is to have this freedom to compare and to move around. It's like in the garden, and we see the projects as flowers. We were also interested in using this scale because after that, it's a scale that you control the building, and because after that, we are going to use a scale where you get into the buildings. So you move from scale 1 to 200 to the scale 1 to 20. George? So this is the idea that you can move around and you can walk around this like in a garden. Okay. On that room, it's another room, we talk about, or we thought about it, having projects that have relations with culture that we all know, like the Egyptian one, or the Roman one that you're going to see in another image, but the Egyptian one with a project that we have done for the Museum of Cairo. This one that is, you see it's suspended here, it's a relation with the Islamic architecture here. That was the problem of the scale of these spaces related to this big foyer or the big entrance for the area here, and we had to then to move it, transform it into another spaces, or on the competition to extend the Mies Museum in Berlin, that we have a project that makes the negative in the negative spaces in Mies become positive, or the positive spaces of the podium in Mies became a void. Go. And you see it here. So this is the Cairo project, where we have this relation with the pyramids and this eternal idea. Go ahead. Or here, project that we made, thinking about the Roman period when they found in Benevento a ruin of a Colosseum so the ruins were here. This is the train to Naples, and we made kind of a negative presence of the museum, the Colosseum here, and then we have a kind of a different relation to the medieval city. And we were interested here in thinking about the scale that we can talk about when you talk about the Roman scale. So this is, but I'm not going to explain these projects. These projects were about these dialogues that we can establish with cultural that we know. So the Egyptian one, the Roman one, the Islamic one, and the modern one. Go ahead. And another room, we talk about materials. So, and the different materials, because we are very, we wanted to always think that we don't start from one material. And in fact, we should not start in architecture from anything. We should end in something. And the idea that we can discover the material during the process of the project, it's very important. Go ahead. And this is, so we were here talking about different materials and like bricks, wood, concrete, or plaster. Go ahead. And we're gonna show you these 5 projects, not these ones, but the ones that we'll talk also about. The first one is about wood, and are these small sheds that we replace in this medieval port. And this project for us is very interesting because you have these small constructions here, and you have this medieval port. And what is interesting is this port have 500 years, but half the construction only lasts never more than 20 or 30 years max. Okay, and this idea that the concept or the idea of the port is more resistance and the physicality is something that is crucial for architecture. Our architecture today only lasts through ideas. They are not going to last physically. Go ahead. And this is so they bought these 2 small sheds and we transformed it into a small house. Go ahead. So you see it here. So it's the pier that exists. It's the water. We add these platforms and we had these 2 sheds, one to sleep, another one, the living room. Again. So you see it here. They are the 2 ones, the one that they have like one of the roofs protects you, the other ones send you out. Again. See the relation with the water again. You see, this is the one where you sleep. There's only a bed here and a small bathroom that you can completely open to have a shower in front of the river. This is the bed. It's very romantic. And the things that I like, there's only a switcher here. There's no, you cannot plug anything. There's a switch that says on, off. End of the technology. So you see it here. So this is the one where you sleep, the one stays, the other one is only one space with a small kitchen on the back. Again, so it's this ambience again. This is all built in reused wood. The one that was older, we put it inside because it was already burned, and the one that was new, we put it outside because it would be burned. It became gray. That's what I was interested in. And this is more or less the ambience that we have there. Another one, so here is a house in concrete, and this is a place where they get permission to build a house because this is an artificial lake, and they get the permission because the house became under the water, so they get the permission to build here a house. And this was a house that we, from the beginning, we wanted to have a patio house. And a patio house because it's from the south, and we wanted to have this relation living in the outside. But the patio house, it's normally the relation between the ground and the sky. And here, we wanted to orient the view. So we came out this idea that's a ruin in the south of Italy. And we love this idea that it could be a patio, but it's a patio that is oriented. And we decided to design a house exactly like that. So we put it as close as possible from the water. We cut this big cupola here. We open from the cupola the living room and the dining room and kitchen. And because this was too deep, we make another cupola here, and we generate an intersection to illuminate the depth of the space. The access from the roof, and then you have these 2 patios, and the bedrooms will open to these very private patios there. Of course, we also, one of the aspects is to reduce the impact of the scale because it's the area that they don't want to build. So this is the extension of the ground. The house is built with the concrete with the same color of the ground. And then we have here these small areas. And then this is the distribution and you have the bedrooms open to the courtyard. So the section, you see the intersection between the two. And the idea is to have these colors. So we have these colors of concrete that extends, let's say, the ambience of colors of the outside. And then from this cupola, you have these big open areas that makes the living room and the dining room. From the inside to the outside, here the kitchen, the circulation that you can open. And then the whole house is built in concrete, except to have the presence of natural wood to warm spaces. The patios are in white tiles to reflect the light. And this is then the opening of this big cupola. So on the cupola that's very heavy in concrete, you have this presence of these spaces that are like negatives from here. And this is, for us, very important, the way in building we redesign what is around us. So this is a house in the middle of it's a big plot, and we wanted to build in bricks. And this is a house that we start by again another one. We start by designing a kind of a grill, like in the Roman, because the house is built like in the Roman ancient time. So we have the foundations in poor concrete, and then you have the rest is brick, and have a small wood structure for the ceiling. And we wanted to create a kind of a grill that then we can open, that can use in a free way. So the first decision was the brick and how to make the brick. We make some experience, and was the brick that decide exactly the size of the houses of everything. So this is a house that have 470,000 handmade bricks, and not only the bricks are completed. So there are no bricks that have been cut. So you see the house here, the way it is now. So the way it is now, you have what is around, it's always gardens or outside spaces. And then you have the house. So you have the house more or less like here. The bedrooms, the main bedroom here, the living room, the kitchen, the main patio with the swimming pool, the main patio for the trees. This is the patio of the fire. And I mean, all around you have patio, because it is also very important to imagine this house as a moment on a house now. We are interested in imagine that is maybe in the future there will be another function for this house, and they will cover these spaces or other spaces, and they could transform. So the rules we were interested in is to define rules, and starting from this definition of the rules, we can then move to other functions, because we think that architecture is much more deep and profound than the function that we start by. So with this function, it's only a pretext that we have to then design architecture. Go ahead. So the house and the construction. So you see that there are no roofs on touching the limit. So here, construction was here and here. This is the main part with the swimming pool, the small part with the small swimming pool. This is a huge house. It's a palace, in fact. Go ahead. But the idea is that we have this enfilade of bricks and spaces, and then all these different patios have different plants and to have different colors and different smells. Go ahead. This is an enfilade that you see the sea in the end with the swimming pool, the one. The patio, the main patio here. And you see here when we were planting with different plants, the different patios. So this is the kind of ambience that we wanted to have for the house. So this is the outside dining room, the patio, and inside you still have exactly this, the bricks, we have the wood, stone, and the bronze. And the ceiling, it's a very linear structure in wood. Another one. Another one. So the kitchen, as you see, it's always this ambience. This is the bathroom, the main bathroom. This is now stone, and this is the tower that we restore from the 15th century in south of Italy, Puglia. And this was what we found there, was this. And our first approach was to say the tower, because the tower seen from here was beautiful, looking like that was not so interesting. So what we proposed to the clients was to demolish this part and use the stones to do a small swimming pool and all the paths around the house, and then restore, let's say, the central tower and make it really a tower. Go ahead. And became a tower. And you see the tower, it's a very simple program. So we have a kind of a living room here, a bedroom on the top with a bathroom and a small office, and a way, stairs to go up and going into the roof to use it as the original purpose of being tower to look outside. So here, the most important thing was that we analyze and we dig until we find the original stones here, or the stones that we were interested in here, even on the floor, and then we plastered the minimum that was necessary only to accommodate the infrastructure. Go ahead. So you see the ambience here. So it was the original stones on the floor, and you see here that we try to leave the most that we can, and we just plastered where was necessary, what we had to have too much infrastructure there. So you see it here was a strategy for the project. Go ahead. So the stairs, we leave it like it was, not so safe. You see it here, so we leave it like we just make two small corrections on the stairs, because okay. Then we go into the bedroom where it's like exactly the same system, where we just plastered moments where was necessary to pass and cross infrastructures here, or where we need more isolation for the climate. The bathroom, and then going out, you see that we keep exactly the same profile. We designed this, and using the old stones, we make this small tank or the small swimming pool. And we also use the stones to make the path on the, now it's everything is cultivated, but by the time we were doing this access to the house. And so you see it here in the house. And then, so the addition was here when we use the stones to make this. And we finalized with the last material that is plaster. And here we restore these two areas here. That was for fishermen here. And we restore, and this is, both of them are 10 by 20. So the two together, they became 20 by 20. Again, another one. And what we made was we decided to leave the walls alone, because we knew that the walls didn't have the capacity to support, and we designed an independent house in here. We're going to have two stairs to go into this roof. The roof is beautiful because you can see from that roof Lisbon, and we have then a very basic program where we have like living rooms on the top, kitchen and bedrooms on the top, kitchen and living room in here, and we have on the center this double high vault for the living room. And we designed something that for us it's interesting, this idea that you have designed this, generating a space to design a swimming pool in here, but at the same time you have like a kind of a whale suspended on this space. And we define the space by its positive element that became negative to support the swimming pool. This was built in the technique that they use on the area. So this is the other side of the river. So this is Bëjë, where they used to build boats. And this is exactly done as a boat, where you make the bones in wood. But the opposite is that then on a boat, you have the wood from the outside, and here you have the wood from the inside to make the swimming pool. And you see here, so the idea is that this is the continuous surface, everything is white, everything is plastered, and this is the continuous surface that goes down and makes the swimming pool and come up. So you see here is the space, it's the living room with a double high here, with two stairs and a small house that we use to fine-tuning the space here. And then up you have the bedrooms with this gallery and the suspended whale here. So you see here, this looks like a photo of a model, but it's a photo of the reality. when we finish. So it's this very abstract space. So you see here this image of this abstraction and the presence of the light that designs in the end everything, and these elements that are the stairs, the well, and this small house that gives the scale of the space. The section on the other sands. The ambience that, of course, change a lot with the light. And of course, the ambience it's only completed when you feel the life in here. So when you feel the life, and this is now the use of the house in a regular way. Go ahead. Go ahead. This is an addition that we made to the project. It's an homage to Villa Malaparte or to Brigitte Bardot, if you want. And this is the situation. So when you have this incredible relation, so here you see Lisbon in all these directions. Back into the exhibition. So this was a room with the main, let's say, with projects that have a relation with the context. This is a university a museum in France there, the University of Architecture in Belgium, here the Museum of Lausanne. And what is interesting for us here on these independent pieces is that you have a scale where each one of these pieces is presented as completely independent. And the drawings, that's something that you cannot see here. When you look at them, they look like these very abstract lines in black. And then when you get closer on the reality there, they have an incredible number of detail. They have been designed. Everything have been done expressed for the exhibition. And the designs have a lot of detail that you can imagine that only through this detail you can build the building. So for us, this is what is interesting, is that we are using the traditional representation way of representing architecture. So models, section, plans, nothing more banal. But at the same time, you want them to be independent pieces that you can imagine as pieces of art, so that we are not interested in being representing something else. And this ambiguity that they also have the information to build. So this is another project. It's a cultural center in the south of Portugal. And this is, again, Lausanne and the Museum of France. And this is another room. It's a room called Geographies. And the geographies are one project for each one of the continents. So Oceania, America, Africa, Europe, or Asia here. And we were interested in also talk about this idea or express this idea that is doing architecture is a way of knowing places. It's a way of knowing different cultures. It's a way of trying to understand the world. This is, for instance, the model of the house in India. So now, very briefly, I go through the other projects. So this is in Africa, in Cabo Verde. It's an island, Ilha do Fogo. It's an island, it's a volcano. And this is always active, this volcano. It's fantastic because it goes out every 10 years. So it's very, very dramatic. And we are building our house more or less in here. So it's not a danger area, but in any case, we have the presence always of this volcano. So again, so the island is made by rock, so everything is rock and having the different levels of rock. And so it's black, absolutely black, or black slightly with some plants, or slightly less black, depending on the period that they came out, the lava came out. But here we are interested in produce and continue this idea of this stone. And we also wanted to have an homage to the traditional way of the build. So they build this way. They build the house like this, round houses this way. It's exactly one traditional house that they have there. And our project is exactly that. So we're going to make a small house. This is a house for, it says the entrance of the project. So this is a living room here with 2 bedrooms and a bathroom in the middle. And here is for the grandparents. They have only 1 living room with a bathroom. And we're going to do these 2 small constructions like that. But the difference that we are going to build structured in wood, and everything around it will be stone. So this stone is going to be completed. So we're going to extend the way they build, and going with the stone also into the roof. And it's the idea that we are going to continue these stones that they have as a landscape into the construction completely. So Australia, this is another house that's not on the exhibition. It's a house that we built, the first house that we built in Australia. And it was a family that wanted to have a house that was a kind of a foundation. And we start with this idea of like the Roman way of starting a city, or like in Brazil, they have these lines that they cut the forest like this way. We designed it exactly this, but as a void. So the house, it's here, very close to the sea in Melbourne. And the house starts by these two lines of light. These two lines divide the courtyard in an entrance courtyard, production courtyard, the main courtyard, and the kids' courtyard, but also divide the house in four. And what we are interested in designing the house like this. So this is the kitchen, dining room, living room, and main bedroom. And then it's cut here. And then from here you have the grandkids, the kids here. So it's the grandparents, the kids here, the tatami room, and then for the girls, they have these independent rooms. So the light here, that's the house in four. It means that they can, with panels, they can use the house in different ways. And this is exactly the open. So we have the cross, it's light. And you see here the plan. So the plan, you see here the light here. You see the kitchen, dining, living. This is independent tatami for the small kids. And then you have this divide also the gardens in four. So the house is very close to the water. So we also design a way of going up in here, going down in there, to use this, or not because we assume that they're going to use the roof, but because we felt that it's important. When you are up, you feel that the water is much closer. Go ahead. And this is the entrance. So the entrance is marked by these stairs. You get under these stairs. You see there are a lot of details that looks very Japanese because the owner is Japanese, and this is the access to the roof. So you have one scale inside the house and another scale outside the house. Another one. So you see it here. We mark the patios. We define the patios with another scale of the construction. This is one image of the main patio. So when you go up from here, you can look into the swimming pool for a relation between upstairs and downstairs. So the other stairs, crossing from the main patio to the kids' garden. And inside, you see the light divided, and then you use these panels to open or enclose the house more or less. Some of the ambience, this is the kitchen, the tatami room, the living room, and then the entrance again. New Delhi, this is a house, a huge house in India that we are building now. It's in the process of building, it's very interesting. But here, we start by this because when we start the project, we were invited by the owner, that is a fashion designer, a very famous fashion designer. He invited us for the marriage of his sister. And we get in here, and it's a complex of palaces. And we find out here what we wanted to do with the project. And we wanted to have this sequence of columns, of this sequence of intimacy that could create on this palace. So you see the palace, we have the outside, and then you have colonnade that makes this kind of a half inside, and then you have the inside, and then you have the private spaces. Then we define here exactly what we wanted on the project. So the site is a very big site in Delhi, and we are planting the site more than anything else, and we are using all the elements that we find there. And what we are going to produce at the beginning is this infinite sequence of columns that are now under production, we are going to then use the columns and enclose some of the spaces in a sequence of intimacy. So we're going to design the house concrete and stone. We're going to use the walls that exist there, so the bricks and the old stones that exist there, and then we're going to end the house in wood. You see here the sequence of the plan of the house. The plan of the house, it is the main house, like kind of a private house for himself, and a house for guests. So this is him and his parents and kitchen and main living room, main areas here. And then you have here for guests, and here is a kind of a private house. This is a huge house, as you can imagine. But this is designed between the main trees that already exist, and then we are densifying, let's say, the area around. But you see here the model. So the model, the idea is that we are going to have these colonnades, and then we're going to have another one. We're going to have these columns here that create this first layer of space. Another one. Another one. Another one. And then we get into another layer where you get inside, and it's all wood. And then you have the blocks that are more private inside. And this is the way we wanted to build it. But this house, what's interesting, it's the way they build it. So the way that are very, in a way, very handmade, they build the house. Again, the one. So this is a project that we are going to build in Portugal. And I like to show this because this is like an old village in the city. So this is a house with 8 bedrooms house that we are going to make a house with 250 meters long house. Another one. You see here the house was one of the first versions of one of the first. No, we're going to see that we have a lot of versions. It was one of the versions of the house, and this idea that each one of these is a bedroom with a living room and a bathroom with patios, and then you have 7 like that, all with a different, let's say, space here, and then you have a main space here and a swimming pool there. From here to there, we have 250 meters. So let's say that we have a very, 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 very long house. Another one. And this is one image that we like, because this was the version 26, the one that you saw in the model. We are now making a tender on the version 34, I think, and we continue to have an evolution on the project. But what I like to show you on this is this same idea that is translated in so many ways. So we can understand that we start from here. We were designing different versions of this same idea, and then you get more precise, or we get into this. But this idea that it's one single idea could be translated in many ways, it's very important for us. Another aspect that we introduce in here is something that one aspect that exists in all our villages are the chimneys, that we use it to make the difference between the levels. So we introduce these chimneys that in fact are very high showers, but they're gonna make the difference between the levels in each one, because we have like 280, 70 here, and each one of them goes up 70 centimeters because was the level. So we have the 7 houses there, and then the main house in here. And this was one of the projects, the first project that we went for tender. And then honestly, we went to Japan, and we felt that our project was a mistake. And we decided to get rid of everything in the inside, and we're going to just have a big space with some aspects of the bathroom here, a bed here, and then we're going to enclose this only with curtains. So the idea is that we're going to have this, like, it's a big patio here, and this is going to be much easier. And this was the kind of an impact that we had on Japan. You see now what is now on tender, and this is the version 34. So this is the last thing that I'm going to show you. It's a house that we are ending in Mexico. The photos have more or less 2 months. The house is going to be finished by the end of this month. So and the house was interesting because we went into this family, and the family wanted to have a house and wanted to live among the trees. And we came to Mexico with a diagram of spaces for them to talk with them about the project. And we came with the sizes and dimensions that we think that they were precise. And when we arrive, we get into this area here, and they say, what we love, it's what we want is to live among the trees. And we translate the idea with a very direct way. So we select the place and we select the trees and we design the house that is designed by the trees. And we also wanted to live on this roof, very close to the trees. And they wanted to live in here. So we designed a house that is compressed and defined by the limits of the trees. And the house only have these bathrooms or small supports as spaces that we can enclose. And all the rest, you can completely open it and you don't understand what it's inside and outside. So the glass will disappear completely. And this, we're going to have it like this. And it's going to be an inside and outside space. This will be the guest bedroom here. This is the living room with the kitchen here, the supported kitchen here, the bedroom for the girls, the kids here, the main bedroom here. So it's a very normal hall. So you see it here, and you see that all the glasses, they can disappear. And you know that it's, in Albania, it doesn't make so much sense to say that, but this is a paradise. You arrive there, and you approve the project by sending an email saying that you are going to build. This is the process. And there are no rules. So no handrails, no dimensions, no handicaps, nothing. It's only what you feel that are the right size. And it's a paradise. So, I mean, it's a really experience. But here you see, so all the glasses could disappear, and then you have just these volumes that exist there. Another one. So you see here the model. So the model is exactly that, are the trees that we take it from the reality, and the house that is compressed by the trees. One of the trees is still also intersecting the house. And you see here, so then now it's under construction. That was 2 months ago or 3 months ago. But you see here, when you get in, you see these 2 stairs. That one that goes into this roof, because we also wanted to use the roof. So the main roof, and this is the roof of the guests. You see here the other side. So this is on the guests. When you see the big roof here, where you can use, there are no handrails, and the kids, they have twins with 6 and one small one with 4. There are no handrails. See the living room. You see from the outside on the living room. So there's a fireplace here. You see the kitchen be here. The supported kitchen will be there. It's more the living area. And you see here the 2 stairs that go around and creates this entrance. And here is where you have one tree that it's there. That's going to. So you see, so the windows are going to be here. So they're going to be disappearing, and the inside and outside is going to be an extension of the same thing. So I just end by showing this installation that we made in Venice, 2016, because for us it's also a very important installation. This one, it's a room that we have on an exhibition, the final room that we have on an exhibition, and it's a room that you go around. It's 6 by 6 meters, and where you have a line of light that define different spaces by compression. And we are very interested in this idea that we can define spaces by the presence of the material. So that's because in the end, we are architects. What we do, we define the limits of voids. And what we do, we build limits of voids, no matter if it's in an urban condition or, let's say, in this scale here. But we always build the void. So we were interested in this idea of defining this compression on different aspects. So just finish. So you see the scale. So you go around and you have different. There are some of them, you can find them in some of our projects. Others are inventions, and one of the spaces is even one space designed by one of our students that we ask him, and we put it on the Biennale. It's finished. Okay.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation.
Fast.
We're going to do some questions, and then we will go with the audience. And so everyone who has a question, feel free to ask. Continuing with the exhibition, and your exhibition at Ralvish Museum was conceived as an exploration of spatial ideas rather than retrospective, in a way. And how did the idea of the exhibition as experiment shape the way you presented and reflected on your work?
Okay, so there are many aspects on your question. I'll start by the beginning of the exhibition. So the exhibition, we had to decide if we wanted to go to House of Architecture in Oporto or to Serralves as a museum. Of course, we choose Serralves. And the reason was that they start by the question how to exhibit architecture in an art museum. And for us, this is a very interesting question. What are we showing when we are showing architecture? And the aspect that we are always escaping that we work using architecture to do something else, that is a subject that we want all to escape, it's very important for us. So we wanted to go and to show this in Serralves. And we call the exhibition During the Spice All. It's a quotation of a philosopher, but we also wanted to be very clear on the idea that we don't architecture. It's what we can do by using something that is very basic as is cost to build. Okay, I love the idea when we once, maybe 10 years ago, we made an exhibition in Gulbenkian. We designed the installation of an exhibition. This was more about Pessoa. Was also Cavafis, but more Pessoa, so our big poet. And the beginning of the exhibition was very interesting because was a message from the women that works for Pessoa saying, Mr. Pessoa, the dinner is on the armoire, you have to just warm it. And then was written on the wall. And then we get in, and was one beautiful poem by one of our camp, one of the heteronyms of Pessoa. And this idea that with the same, exactly the same letters, you write a message asking 50 euros to your father, or you write poetry, it's exactly the same thing that you have in architecture. Because the architects, they deal with windows, doors, floors, ceilings, proportions, materials, very basic things that everybody knows. The problem is, what can we do with this? How can we transform these things in a sort of an aspiration that is more intentional? And this idea is exactly the idea that we wanted to bring to the exhibition, is to say, we use banal things. So we are going to give you plans, sections, models, but we're going to make each one of them having a meaning. And this is also a way of pushing and, of course, provoking support. By the way.
Well, since maybe these questions come from the earlier talk that we had, you talk about beauty, and like you say that the architecture is a mean to achieve it. Like we do architecture to achieve beauty. When was like the first time you remember, or like the last time you remember experiencing beauty in architecture? I mean, I don't know. Maybe it could be also coming from Fernando Pessoa. Like, let's go in your childhood, or let's go in your youth.
But, you know, it's very interesting your question, because when we talk about beauty, beauty is a very responsible thing. It's beauty. When you think about beauty, it's something that's very deep. It's not an image. It's not a banal thing. Beauty is it's about true. It's about reality. It's about things that are very deep on in our cultural aspect. And I think that it's this idea of finding beauty. It's that what we have to have as an aspiration when you do architecture. Because when you do architecture, you use subject. And normally people say architecture is not an art because you have a client. I mean, come on. Vermeer also have a client. And you cannot say that Vermeer is not an artist. Those clients, it was like, hey, we have to paint my mother or my duke or whatever. And they had to paint it, the duke. And it was a client, was a commission. That doesn't make this not being art. Art is because we can use architecture to be an expression of our time, the expression of our problems, And this is what is interesting in beauty, because beauty is when you find that it's correct, when you find that it's there. The experience of beauty sometimes is very difficult, and it's very difficult to find. The most precise moment that I found beauty is when I was very young, let's say around 10, 11. My mother used to send us to the Gulbenkian Foundation to watch ballet. You can imagine that you pick on the street, you go and see ballet. It's in the middle of was not easy. And we were not interested in ballet anyway. So my brother and I were not interested in ballet in any case, but we were obliged to go. And one day I was watching this with more or less this age, and I saw Cunningham. That was the Cunningham, was his company. It was very old, Cunningham by that time, but he just walked on the end of the stage. He just walked there, and I realized what was beauty in ballet. And I understand that, but I cannot explain why. It was just absolutely amazing. And I start to like it. And then I start to understand or try to understand the dance or the ballet or the dance, more than ballet, dance. And this is something that I understood, that it's sometimes we don't like because we don't understand. We don't have the knowledge to understand. And when we understand really deeply what it is, we find the beauty in things. You understand? So sometimes beauty is also about this capacity of not knowing, the capacity of recognizing. But in architecture, it's very strange because we all recognize beauty in old buildings, but we have a huge difficulty of recognizing beauty in new buildings. And also, I think that it's also because most of them are not beauty. This is a problem that we have as architects, but also because beauty, it's about creating you in some way an emotion. And this is what it's interesting. It's what we need to bring into architecture, is to bring contacts and emotions that we can share showing architecture. So talking about beauty, it's not like to be honest, and we have to try to find beauty, but we have to try to communicate beauty with the people. So we are responsible to that. We use very banal things, but you could transform this banality that we do, that is built. It's very banal. Don't pretend that it's very complicated, because it's not. It's very simple. But we can translate this very simple thing into extraordinary facts. But this is something that we have to understand, that it's to do something else. It's to do something else beside building.
And does this come with maturity, especially like in every profession, or like in general, like this translating banality?
I think that it's, like a maturity helps a lot in architecture. And unfortunately, because it's nothing is better than being young. I think that it's better to be young and not and do mistakes and be mature and try to do less mistakes. But maturity helps a lot and helps you to understand the meaning of a project in a deep sense. And to be honest, when I remember when we were young and we start to build, we were maniacs about geometry and the angles that touch the angles, and everything was mathematic and blah, blah, blah. And now because the project is to anticipate and to control, we are more interested in understand and put together everyone that it's in one side. So let's say that we are interested in understand the guy that's going to do the concrete, and understand the guy that's going to the carpenter, and understanding and trying to bring everyone. And it's more like to try to put together all this knowledge than more than impose our knowledge. And this is what it's interesting. But it's also a question of understand and rely on the situation. So we have to rely on the conditions to really provoke a good project. But it's more, and I think that this is on this sense, yes, maturity helps a lot, on the sense that you understand that you can put everyone together and that you also put the clients together on this, and you put, I mean, let's say, even the authorities are very important to these things, because it's about to put everyone together and trying to, manipulate these possibilities and try to extend these possibilities to something, because the material of architecture are the constraints. So we have constraints. If I had when I was a student, I had a very good teacher, and one day he said to us that he wanted a project in the desert, no program, no budget, no dimensions. You cannot do anything, so you just stop. And the constraints is what designs, and we need these constraints. We need this going back and forth and having other problems, and and these are very interesting when you add the layers of problems and difficulties. And sometimes you complain about another law, but these things that, of course, we complain because it's tough, but they add a lot in terms of developing projects. And this is, I think, that is very important, because we work starting from limits on budget, limits on sites, limits on programs, limits on clients, limits on law, whatever. And we start from that to start the project. And these constraints that we have, they help a lot on formulate the project, and helps on the consequences on the project. So I think this is what comes with age, or what comes with maturity. It's to understand and integrate everyone, and be happy to listen and know. It's something that when you are young, somebody says, you said, you're going to kill my project. And now when you are mature, you understand that they're going to transform your project. And this is always a new possibility. It's always, yes.
I have just a little question, like regarding the house you were doing. You said that in Japan you realized that you did a mistake, like on the 250-meter long house. You said that you were traveling to Japan and then you understand that you did a mistake. How did you realize it? Like what gave it away, and why specifically in Japan?
No, it was specific because it was a moment where, that I went to the Katsura Palace, like everyone, like every tourist, let's say. And I was there admiring the relation between the different spaces. And I was saying that this is the kind of relation that I feel that I would love to have in a certain condition, in a condition where I can, and in a moment, because I was thinking we were sending this project to tender, the version before the one that we have now, and I realized that I was blocking everything with no reasons at all. I say, why am I creating so much complex, no, divisions on the spaces, and not because, and I think this, that I have to find a way of divide the space, but giving this density of continuity that we have on the Katsura, on the tea house, on the Katsura. And I don't know, it came to my mind and say, okay, so I'm doing a mistake. I'm doing a version that I'm no longer interested in, and I can have an evolution on the project. Because, one of the things that, and one of the reasons that I like to show this project is that we have, at the moment now, we're only there represented 26, but I think that we are on the version 34. And I like this idea that we have an evolution on the project and understanding each step that we have. But for us, if I describe the project, it's always the same project. I describe it the same way, but we can describe it in 34 different ways. And this idea that you never stop working on the project, because an evolution is a continuity that you have to do. And you understand better and better the project, because the project is a way of knowing the problem. But when you realize that you know the problem, you have to start again because you know better. So you have to start. And this idea that it's the process could be fine-tuning project. It's very interesting. That's one of the reasons that we represent, for instance, like on the first, the garden on the exhibition, we wanted to have all these projects together because we wanted to walk around the projects and understand tensions and things that we can take out of the projects, not to continue with, this project, because we think that we should always start from in a fresh way. We don't want to know what we have done before, but to make things being intention, to understand them. And this idea that we continue to work even in the project that we already finished. You understand? I look into my project I finished 10 years ago and say, I go there for dinner and say, there I could do better. And I continue to work on the project, It's not because I'm going to demolish their house, of course, but in my mind, I continue to work on the project. And I think this process of continue to work, it's very important for an architect.
Finally, after all constraints, after all negotiations, why beauty still? Is it beauty resistance? Is it beauty necessary?
I think that, we are in the world that it's now falling apart. We feel that there are no values anymore. It's a very strange world now. The only thing that can put us together, it's in a way the beauty. I think that it's when we go back one hope, and we jump again to Francisco, we remember that he was always trying to use art and beauty to unify and transform the world, to make people change, to put the people together. And I think this is what we have to do. Beauty puts people together. And I think that it's one very important element. When you look into the world, you open a television and you know that in 10 minutes will be a monster appear on the show for sure. You understand that you need this beauty. You need this idea that unifies us, that gives us hope into the future. I think that we do a very basic thing, that it's to build. And we have the responsibility to transform this very basic thing into beauty. It's our responsibility. It's our job. It's not to build. To build, anyone can do it. Our responsibility is to transform this very basic work.
Well, going back now again to the projects, I had one question while you were showing the house in Mexico. Is that going to be plastered, or it will be like a concrete?
It's plastered. It's plastered in. We define a plaster that it's done with concrete, with white concrete, but it's a kind of it's white concrete. We plastered with white concrete. Let's say that we.
Just to also follow the question, like, because we see the house in Lisbon, the one close to the boat construction site, the house in Puglia, like the Trinidad, the Trinidad College in Coimbra, and there is always this decision to make, what to be plastered and not to be plastered. Like, how do you decide that? Like, you have fully plastered buildings, and then you had, like you said, the house in Puglia that we just plastered the necessary, and then at the Coimbra, like, we saw some pictures back and forth. There was the vaults that were plastered, and there were some elements. Like, how do you decide? How do you go with the process of like deciding?
I'm going to try to quote John Cage, but I'm going to quote it in a very easy way, because I don't know to do it better. It's not because I didn't want it. I don't know to do it better. But John Cage one day he said something like, when I start a process or a project, I invite everyone to my room, and then I start to work. Little by little, people start to go out. With a little bit of luck, I also go out, and it will be finished by itself. And I think this is the process of a project. When you really control a project, we start by the process, and in a way, we understand that from a certain point, it's the process that controls the project, not us. And the process going into the right decision. Let's try to find the right decisions. Of course, we have to go version after version. It's not because we do it at the first. It's not, but we go and we start, and the project goes on this process of going and becoming itself like in a process. Then became more and more clear. And the project that we like, it's a project that we understand, looking into the project, exactly the rules. Not the project, but the rules of the project. It's what is important. And I think that it's what we try to do, and it's different what we try than what we do. There's a difference, no? We try always and we fail, so we fail again. But what we try to do, we try to find on the process project and start the much as we can from the beginning. So from the problem, and we try to understand what's the problem here, and we start from that problem, trying to define the project, and we define the material or the way we finish it or strategy on the process, not starting by a decision. One of the things that we are afraid is that, in a way, in one certain moment in our lives, we end losing our freedom. I tell you one history. One day I was in a dinner, was not having dinner with him. I was in a dinner with 50 people, and was this American architect that do everything in squares white. It's like no, the one that goes, it's not Michael Graves. Richard Meyer. Thank you. So it was Richard Meyer there on the dinner. I mean, was the important guy on the dinner. I was more or less in the kitchen. And I heard Richard Meyer saying, I'm so expensive that when I design a project, everybody have to recognize it as a Richard Meyer. And this, that happens many times to many architects, that we have to recognize them. This is my biggest trait. I don't want to be recognized. I want to keep my freedom in building whatever comes into the process, whatever comes into the H1 of a. So I'm only interested in the risk, on the investigation, and in the mistakes that I'm able to do. This is my only fear is that getting old, and you lose. I start doing, white sheets with holes, touching one to each other to look like, I don't know. This is my mistake. My. So I think that we cannot decide anything. We have to be as gentle as to leave the process or the project be done by itself. This is what is a good architect. Someone that leave the project be done by itself. And you see them happen on the process. This would be my goal, my ambition, let's say.
So I think we be interesting to see if there is any question from the audience. Yeah.
Question. Going for microphone. Beautiful work, as we all know. My question is a bit out of topic. I'm really sorry. You come from Lisbon, which is a city that has, since a long time, fallen victim of a long process of gentrification. I guess Albania, but also European metropolis, are starting to fall victim also of gentrification. What do you think that we can do as architects? I mean, besides not accepting any work and living under the bridge, what else? How can we affect it or influence on stopping this phenomenon?
Okay. When we talk about gentrification and we talk about a city like Lisbon, we have to divide in positive elements and negative elements. So there are one positive element that it's the city of Lisbon have been restored in a very fast way. And this was a very important thing. The people are more beautiful. There are more people coming from everywhere in the world. And this is very interesting. Then, saying that, this brought a huge problem that it's people are being expelled from the city center, and people don't have enough money to live on the city. So when we talk about our prime minister 10 years ago, we were saying that we have to build houses, and you have to have a park of public residential areas that you have to, and we were saying that we have to have at least 1/3 of the houses have to be public. And I mean, 10 years ago, we had already several prime ministers after that, and we are continue to have the problem because it's very difficult to build. It's very difficult to face a problem that takes too long to 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 solve. But we have to understand that it's this idea where a city becomes more international came with problems, but also came with huge advantage. If we imagine the city of Lisbon 20 years ago, of course, we didn't have this problem. That's a huge problem, but we had many, many, many problems. And now we have a problem to solve. That is, how can we build and how can we build in a fast way to respond to the problem of residential. For instance, I work in the program for the city hall that the previous one. That was I work on a mathematic. I designed with the city hall a mathematical formula to respond to efficiency in construction of residential by according to all the laws that we have. So we made a kind of a program of mathematics, and we made so it was possible to see on that plot. On that plot, you can build this by this by this by these levels, and this gives you this number of stairs, numbers of lifts, and everything could be according to that. And then we designed this. Then they select 40 architects, and the only thing that I decided is I was not going to do any project. I made the formula, and I was on the jury to select the architects. And we succeed on doing, I don't know, maybe 3,000 houses or 3,000 apartments. But it's, of course, they said we need to do it 10 times more or 20 times more or 30 times more. I don't know the names. But there have to be programs like that we have to use public offered to. There's no other way, because the privates are not done to do affordable houses. It's not their job. So our job, the job of the state, is to respond to that. In any case, this idea that this big transformation in the cities that we are going to assist in, of course, in Tirana, it's only brings negative things. It's not true. It also brings positive things that you have to accept.
Anyone else?
I like the project of India. I have a question. If life is reduced step by step until it vanishes, does architecture ends or begins?
Sorry?
Does architecture ends or begins with dark?
With the construction? Here on the case, it's no, in India it's fantastic because on the process of construction, you can imagine that they came always when they start a column, came the women to pray to the ground because they are interfere with the ground. Can imagine that. Women praying to start a column. So, and the process is so slow that we have the feeling that we are going to do 20 projects before being with the columns. And then when we are building the columns, of course, the project is going to change. And this is for us a very interesting system because give us the time to reflect about the project. We are doing the beginning of the columns at the moment there, and we are doing examples of the concrete too, because everything will be white concrete and stone, but I mean, it will be one part in white concrete. But for us, it's this idea that we are going to have the time to redesign the project several times. It's very interesting. At the same time, like I have to do meetings Saturday mornings at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's not the most pleasant things in the world, but you understand that it's the process. It's to go step by step together with the clients and the local architects to understand the process. But my feeling is that we are just starting. The most accurate example of that we have It's the big model that you saw there on the exhibition. It's a huge model that we understand the ambition, but we don't know what, I mean, we don't know. We have, the execution project is finished, but we are changing it. And this is something that for us very interesting. So we are starting the project with the women that pray to open the columns.
Last question.
I cannot hear you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Well, I think it's a bit cliche, but since different times come with new possibilities in how we approach architecture.
It's so fast.
Oh, you will.
So it's not
I'm slowing down.
I don't understand you.
Okay, so since different times come with new possibilities on how we approach architecture, I want to know what values do you wish young students and architects to develop more in nowadays for students and young architects? What values do you think we have to keep in mind when we design?
I mean, for there one thing that is very important to understand in the job of an architect. We normally, and this is a mistake that we do, we only talk about architects that design, okay? And we talk normally about one person here. We are talking to me, but I have here George that works with me for the last 27 years. So we can imagine how close we are, but we talk with me. And we never say, the George projects, why not? And in the office, some of the projects are not mine. I mean, I take the final decision, but who cares, you know? Sometimes it's even a young architect that came out with the idea. So we talk too much about this idea, and the architects became a lot these the names and brands, and it's a mistake. Okay, so there are many jobs doing architecture. You can teach, you can go into a city hall, you can work in programs, you can do many things that are all important as doing projects. So, and this is very important for the young architects. When I start, I had a very stupid director on the school that said, some of you will be architects. Meaning, some of you are gonna, I don't know, have a Porsche. I don't know what was the idea. And we understand that I mean, being an architect is being many things. You can be critic, you can write, you can, you know, to be many things. The most important thing is to do seriously what we do. No matter what, we have to do serious in what to do. And then the other aspect is that when we design, going specific to what you asked, you have to always to understand that we can always improve things, and we should not defend our projects. Sometimes I have this discussion when, you know, one of the things that I love more is to teach. I'm always teaching, so I always teach. So since the day I finished, I start teaching, and for me it's very important. Teaching it's something that I love, and it's very important. And one of the things that I say to my students that don't defend the project. Think about the critics too. Make it move it, you know. And we architects, it's not the young ones. We all, when somebody criticizes, we defend the project. We should not. We should open the project and start a discussion and start to improve the project and start to move the project. And this is very important because we can always improve a project. And a new layer of critic is always a possibility, never the end of the world. But we always say, oof, because, you know, of course, as egomaniacs as we are, when somebody criticizes our project, they are criticizing this, what is unacceptable. But this is a mistake. You know, criticizing the project is a way of making and generating a possibility. It's what it's interesting.
Another question, please.
Hello, I'm Nesila. It was wonderful to hear you. I think I'm too close. Okay, I'm gonna go first. So I believe your architecture is a pure form of poetry, and poetry is the highest form of art, but it's very hard to understand. And every project you do somehow is recognizable, even if you don't want to. So is it the approach to the project which is recognizable, or what are the elements that you approach a project that made you come to this poetry language that you have? Too many, no?
Okay, you know that it's very strange because you know like we are not very. It's not very clear the project for us. I give you an example. You know, now I show always, and I like to show this idea that all in different materials, all in different continents. It's not, you cannot compare them, okay? At the same time, at home, they say, your projects are squares. Like, come on, squares? I do all the shapes in the world. They are round, they are whatever, and they're squares. So we never know what people, the way people look at our project. What we think about our projects that we want our projects to be a fresh process. One of the things that we are sure is the moment that we use something that we already know, the project, it's never going to be very interesting. It has to be a discovery. So the process, you know, there's a moment where you are working in the project and then you start to realize that the project came out. And when it came out, you say, oh, it's there. And then you realize that it's there. You don't push them. You realize that it's there. And this is not the moment that it's interesting. And I think that is what unify our project, that we wanted to always work with projects that we don't know the results. And that's why also know it's like interesting when you go and you have to build a house it's so big in India. Because I mean, India is very far away. It's the first time that you go to India, it's to see the project. You know nothing about India. But at the same time, you know, you cannot repeat anything that you have already done because it's a completely different condition. And they say there's a huge problem. If you don't have this kind of windows, the monkeys will get in. So the monkeys, I've never been in a place where there are monkeys, you know, like, so, and I like this. I like this idea that it helps us when we jump into conditions that are different. Sometimes it's more complicated. I mean, if we go and we have like houses close south of Portugal, an area there, very famous now, Comport and Malite, that, I mean, we do a lot of houses there. And so it's more complicated. So it's like, you know, it's one and then another one on the same conditions. And why this is a new investigation. But we have to do it like that. So we have, and in houses, what is fascinating is that we always have one aspect that it makes the house become absolutely different. It's the client. So I love to hear my clients. You know, some of them they are not, I mean, in India, I have a fashion designer. Interesting. Normally, my clients are, you know, a fat, rich lawyer. It's not they are, no, they are not the most interesting people in the world, but they are all possible to become interesting. And if you listen to them carefully, they'll start to be interesting, you know. And this is something that makes the difference on the projects. The clients, because the clients are really unique, so they can make the project become unique.
And yet, your project, they all follow. It's all yours. I mean, we can see your talent in your project. So, I repeat the question: where is it coming from? It's pure talent. Is a research? Is it? How is it possible? I mean, I'm very curious. I mean, I'm following you since my graduation project. For me, it's like you are the Messi of architecture. So, what's the secret?
No, the secret it's an easy one. are my collaborators, of course. But more than anything else, like when Adelina talked to me about this section today here, he mentioned that there are people that sings and they play and they are funny. I have no fun at all. I don't play anything. I don't do anything. I just work. I don't know if it's a secret, but I just work. So I wake up every single day and I go to work. Doesn't matter the day of the week. It doesn't matter what happens. I wake up and I will go to work. And this is what I do. It's what I like to do. By the way, it's what I like. So I like to wake up and I go to work. And it is not a secret. It's I work. I don't have any talent. I work. I spend time on the top of the things that I do. It's a talent? No. Some people say it's a mistake. I'm going to die, and with 95, I'm going to regret the moments that I spend in the office. But it's what I do. So I don't know. I don't think it's a talent.
I do it too, but I'm not good at it.
It's not too young. You have to insist. You have to insist. And it's to be honest, it's I think that the trick, it's not to work every day. I mean, you can have a normal life. I think that we should have a normal life. And I don't have a normal life because I don't know to do anything else. And I discovered that, when I wake up and I say, I don't play tennis. I don't know. I don't know how to play football. I don't like to watch football. I don't like anything. I like to work. So this is problematic. So I think that I should change, and I hope to change in time. Okay? But I think so. I think that we should have a very normal life, because also architecture, it's informed by life. So we have to understand life. We have to be very attentive to life. So we have to, realize everything. So we cannot lose time. So the other trick that I think that I can tell you is that we have to understand how can we collect memories. Because when we were young and we used to have to travel, we used to go and have 35 images to do. It was expensive, so we have to go. So we go around the building, choose the right set, and they became an image in your mind. Now, don't even do it. So you lose the capacity. So we don't design. When I start doing competitions, I used to spend, as a the youngest one in the office, to spend 2 weeks designing the site plan. No, don't design a site plan. We used to spend hours, days doing the models. Now, and these things, okay, they are great. Thank God they exist. But they don't help you on collect memories. So we have to find, each one of us, the way we can collect memories. How can you collect memories? Because this is one example that I give to my students. You have 20 years. You have been trained as a young architect from the last 2 or 3. No. I mean, in general, students, no, we don't have 23, I know that. But when you have 23, you have been trained for a couple of years. And so you know what is a door. But by experience, you have crossed millions of doors. So I'm interested in what these memories that you have of the doors, and not what you have learned, in the classes about doors. And the problem is, how can you recognize in your memories things? You have to have tricks. You have to find your tricks. My trick is easy. I'm always carrying this. And by the way, they are disappearing, this Moleskine without the scale. It's a nightmare. But I sketch all the time. I sketch all the time because I need it. I need to remember things. I write here also the list for the supermarket. It's not secret. But I collect here my memories. I'm always saying and I go into the small details, and I wanted to recognize things. But I mean, it's not secret. I mean, you can write, but the problem is that how can you recognize your memories? You are very good in shooting, taking photos. You take photos. I mean, we have to, because we have to fix our own memories to then have something personal. Because, architecture is very generic. Because, of course, for many reasons, it became very international. Our problems are very common around the world. So things that became generic, of course they became generic. They are generic in reality. So what could we make that makes the difference? And it's this, how can we connect or collect memories? We have to find a way to collect memories. To then start using your memories, start using yourself. And the moment you use yourself, you are a powerful tool, because nothing is more powerful than a person. This is what we have to embrace. We have to understand how can we use ourselves in the project, and not what we know. What we know, what we have seen, this doesn't brings you anything. What you feel, but you have to find a way to collect these memories, to collect these things.
And on that wonderful note, I would like to thank Manuel, Mateus, and everyone here. Thank you.